Hey, you guys. I know it's been a long time. I just wanted to give a strong message uh, to a weak person. And I'll tell you first, I'm laughing because the weak person is myself. I've been grappling for years with this observation. This is spiritual observation. And if anybody is going through this, I want to let you know that you're not alone. You're not alone. You're here, and you're definitely moving in the right direction. You just have to make the choices, and we're going to talk about the topic. Everybody's not supposed to be married. For some of you, I know that you feel like, for those of you who have a spiritual background or a theological or a church background of bringing up, you feel like, like in Genesis, the Most High said that he didn't want to see man alone. He knew that it was not good. But then when you get into further scriptures, you'll find out that Christ said that he is connected to those people who have forewent or would be the ones to forego marriage because they have a spirit of relent when it comes to prophecy. They have a spirit of relent when it comes to teaching. They have a spirit of relent when it comes to learning the different things of the Most High while in real time in this life. And they're relentless in their pursuit of the connection with God. They're not going to let anybody or anything influence them or get in the way of it. I'm talking to you. And so with all of these different things, these different distractions and different terminologies, I'll call them distractions because they're kind of like bywords and names that they try to give people nowadays. With all of the LGBTQ communities and everything that they're trying to do to create a term, because humanity is still growing up. Humanity is still naming animals. Humanity is beginning to name themselves and also name the inner workings of their minds, right? They're trying to figure out and give terms to ideological intricacies, inner dimensional intricacies of the mind and the state or the status of being within a person's self. When you have the ability to mind map your own mind and figure out, why did I react that way? Why did this trigger me? Why did this move me? And so we're at this point growing up in the world all together at one time globally. The most important thing to know is that moving forward, you definitely have to understand that it's okay if you have decided that you're going to be one of those people who are going to be alone. I have been grappling with the knowledge, the spirit of knowledge, and not wrestling in a way to where I'm fighting myself or fighting against God, but just fighting to understand. So I've been having to let go many distractions, like layers to an onion. You just peel back, you keep peeling back until you get to the center, right? And so this has been taking years for me to do and to figure out. And I was wondering, is something wrong with me? Because the majority of my life I've not been in relationships. I'm going to be 53 this year, and I can tell you that the longest relationship that I've been in was approximately 5 years, and I wasn't married to that person. I've been in 7 relationships, 7 serious relationships. Other than that, I was just getting to know people, just talking to people and having, times to where I just was throughout my life talking and just meeting people, but it wasn't a relationship. It was no consummation physically as well. But I've had 7 serious relationships in my entire life, and I've only signed up for one. And sometimes when we mistreat ourselves when we're young, we'll find ourselves diverting or deviating from a path that we knew we had. Some of us know when we come into this world how much we can stand, what is a limitation and what is a freedom. And so sometimes we'll see certain things as freedoms, which are actually limitations. And I would always say, well, I'm going to marry this person and we're going to get married at this age and we're going to do this and I'm going to do this business and I'm going to do that thing. But when I deviated from the path, it changed a whole lot. And up until then, everything was going as to plan. Everything was going as to plan. But with many motivations in life and growing up, we have what they call peer groups, right? And so you come under peer pressures, and certain things come about through peer people or people peering into your life, trying to manipulate your standard or your quality of being. It's kind of like when I've noticed with babies, they'll have like a terrible cold or a flu, and they'll wipe their nose and then wipe it on your face, literally, like on their hands. They'll have mucus or something, and they'll take that hand and wipe it across your mouth. And so you're tending to that baby, and then you're sick, and as a person who raised children as a single parent, and then as a person who started babysitting at 8 years old, and as a person who come from a family where it was 35 cousins, it would be at least 10 or 11 cousins at the grandmother's house all the time. Any given day you can walk in and see 20 kids there. My grandmother, they all came from farms and farming communities, farming culture. So they were big on having a lot of family members and having a lot of kids, And so it was tons of kids everywhere, and we all knew each other. We were like a small village. We were a big family, a huge family, actually. And so, like I say, when you get in those peer groups, and I've watched kids grow, I've taken care of babies since I was a baby. I enjoyed and loved taking care of babies. Just a wonderful thing. I, at 6 years old, started learning how to comb and braid hair, and I didn't know that one day that I would have to be a single dad combing and braiding hair for my daughters. And I'd done that until they fired me in junior high school. But I had my one daughter, her hair was extremely long, and I had grew it out for her. And my other daughter, she had a different grade, and it was always, a nice length, a nice shoulder length. I could always keep it and work with it. But what I'm saying is that, throughout our lives, we'll have these peer groups and these different people of these different domineering personalities and supportive personalities. And then we'll have certain personalities that are just there and just part of the group. And this is coming from a person who grew up in a big family. So it was never like we were alone, because there were so many of us, and that's the unfortifiable dominance of thinking that you have a false sense of security as well, which is a whole nother discussion. Because when you got all those cousins, you can easily formulate a gang. We would do that when we were kids. That's another story. But let's get back to the different personalities and traits and characteristics in these large groups of people. So you find out eventually one day that you're not doing what everybody else is doing. You're doing your thing. Everybody's doing their thing. Everybody gets grown. They grow up. They have kids. They do certain things. And I know for a lot of my male friends, it was unnatural to have less than 5 or 6 girlfriends on your roster at a time. That was just part of the culture. I would say from early 7th grade to about When did we stop doing that? Probably approximately 11th grade. 11th grade is when we all kind of started slowing down and getting more physically into ourselves as far as working out and building, our bodies the way that we wanted to be muscular, or if we wanted to be slim, or if we wanted to be really thick. I had friends taking creatine, eating peanut butter, working out, eating peanut butter and bananas, lifting weights, doing everything they could to become whoever they wanted to be. I was into dancing a whole lot, and I was skinny like a string bean, and I was beautiful, but I created myself into who I wanted to be. So at that time, we were really into creating ourselves so that when we got out of high school, we could have the form and the physical shape and the looks that we wanted to go into the world. We were mentally and unofficially planning all of these things, and we would work out on the weekends. Me and my friends, we would work out on the weekends. They would see me running through the neighborhood going to the school to hop the fence to run track on the weekends, and they would follow me, and before I knew it, it'd be a gang of us, like 17 kids hopping the fence running track on the weekend. You understand what I'm saying? In the place that was in between Compton and Watts. You could certifiably say this was the ghetto, but it wasn't, because just as there are differences in different places, there are always, A sides and B sides. There's always two sides to a coin, right? Let's get on with this message that the Most High was telling me about. So I'm noticing I only signed up for one relationship. I never wanted to be a person who slept around. I never wanted to be in multiple relationships. I never wanted to be that type of. I just wanted one wife, one experience, one life, and that was it. That's what I signed up for. But through series of observations and things of, you know, things of domineering ideologies. Boys, we pick on each other. The older ones pick on the younger ones. You got your big homies, you got your little homies, and those nasty germs, they come out. Why is he still a virgin? He's 17. I have 30 girlfriends. Why have you not had one? I've had 30 experiences with 30 different women. I'm 18. You're 15. You haven't done it yet. So we, as boys, had that culture, and no one knew, and it was a subculture. And we would talk about our experiences and what we felt like we should be doing. And we would judge each other based on the lack of, or the dominant prowess or power of having a lot of experiences. And we'd sit around and we'd laugh and we'd talk about things and experiences. And let me explain to you something. There comes a time when you grow up, even as a young man, because I knew in my mind, once I was in 11th grade, I had seen enough. And I literally just wanted to be with one person, and that was the person that I was with from 8th grade. And we were together. She was in 7th grade, I was in 8th grade, and I planned to marry her. I planned to be with her and spend the rest of my life with her. But through the peer pressure and then the questions, well, you're about to be 17. What are you, gay? Questions like that. Offensive questions. Mind you, I grew up in a hospital, so even though I have friends, my peer groups are not really friends. These are extended or family members. Remember I told you I had a lot of cousins, a lot of family members. So even our friends that was connected to us were extremely close because they knew we were a pretty big family. So we would engraft you in. You just got engrafted within the family structure. If you were a friend, it would be like one friend and 4 cousins hanging out. And we're anywhere from 13 to 18 to 19 years old in the group, and you'd see us hanging out and you think that we're just buddies or whatever, but it's real relationships there, real in-laws and engrafted people, and you think that we don't know each other and we're really related, all of us. So, like I said, the jokes and the things that come with that. And if you're not strong, and if you don't have strong male guidance, mental guidance, emotional guidance, mentorship, if you don't have those things so that you can fortify yourself against the distractions, you're going to falter. Now, as far as regarding the females, I'm not talking about females today. I'm talking about the male psyche, the data that we choose and we adhere to within these different structures of growing up in groups, right? So, because of those things, what I have noticed with people like myself, as strong as I was all the time being the voice of reason, as strong as I was being there for my grandmother and helping my grandmother in and out of season with her practices of spiritually counseling people. And I started that at 12, I believe, 11 or 12, maybe 12. But regardless to when I started, I was always having to be the voice of reason, the one to, hey, can you talk to my son? Hey, can you sit down and talk to my daughter? Hey, I got this kid that, is going through this. Can you sit down and talk to him? So I was that kid that all of the parents would come to talk to their kids to kind of mentally straighten out. And it wasn't that I was, forceful or anything like that. It's just that I was a great listener and I had strong problem solving abilities and skills on a mental, emotional, spiritual, and a physical, energetic level. I could tap into the other person and see from their standpoint what they were feeling, as we call it, putting on someone else's shoes, right? You become the person literally while you're listening and assessing it. You don't judge, you just listen and you assess and you come up with value systems and solutions. Basically, that's it. And I noticed I had been doing that for years. And so when it came time to me to get my dose of peer pressure, that was the one thing that I cracked. I cracked under because I never felt physically up to par. I have a brother that's giant. I have a father who was about to be in the NFL. He's a giant. And I stopped growing in 10th grade. And my mother had a conversation to sit down with me. She said, hey, I want to talk to you. And she knew I really wanted to grow and be this huge man. And she knew it was never going to happen. The men on my mother's side are small, short and, full in stature, but short. And she knew that the average height was 5'8", and from 8th grade to 11th grade, I was 5'4". And one day I just had a growth spurt. I had a growth spurt. And I went from 5'4" to 5'8". I remember my legs and bones burning for weeks, and I was laying down in bed, and I'm in 11th grade. I'm having pains all in my legs because I'm growing and I'm having my last final growth spurt, and I'm knowing I'm going to be 6'7", because I would always promise my brother I'm going to be 6'7", and I'm going to beat you up. When I turned 6'7", I said, you're 5'11", Dad is 6'1", and I said, I'm going to beat you up when I grow. I said, I'm going to be taller than you. I said, because of the way the universe is, it's going to allow me to get taller than you and be stronger, and I'm going to eventually beat you up. That's just how it's going to be, buddy. And so that never happened. And my mother had to talk with me, and she sat me down. And she said, hey, I want to talk to you. And she said, I noticed you had a growth spurt. And I said, yeah. And she said, how do you feel about it? And I told her what I felt. And she says, do you feel like you're going to grow anymore? And I said, yeah, definitely. She said, how do you expect, with, all of the sicknesses and everything that you've been through, how do you expect that, you're going to grow more than you are right now? and get to this idea of what you want to be, how do you expect that's going to happen? And I told her, like, I could start playing baseball and doing stretches. A lot of the guys was talking about if you go to just play, you don't have to take it up serious. Just go there for the stretches and just get on the team. You're going to stretch and your body's going to grow. Things going to happen to your bones, your ligaments, and you're going to grow, right? You'll have a spurt. And so I told her, I can just play basketball in the meantime. And and she said, Keith, she said, listen, she said, this is it. And I looked at her and she said, this is it. She said, it's okay. She said, you're a good size. She said, you're a good size for a man. She said, it's okay. She said, I just want to let you know that you're a good size and it's okay. Don't worry about it. She said, you're a good size. And I just sat there quietly. And I remember at the time, as beautiful as I am, I was so fine. I got myself to that point. I was exercising and working out. I had my hair the way I wanted it. I had my body the way I wanted it. I was dressing the way I wanted to dress. I always had attention on me. And when I went places, I just felt good about myself. And I was like, now I just got to go through the rest of the observation, get out of high school, go marry the love of my life. And we're going to go to college together and stay married and build this beautiful life and blah, blah, blah. And I just had it all planned out, right? And when she told me that, she said, it's okay. And I just sat there quiet and I thought about it. I thought about my uncles, her brothers. I thought about the height they told me my mom's father was. He passed away when I was 1. I never met him like that. And I got sad. Before then, I had issues with anger because I was always in the hospital and sick. So I was always angry about that. I was made sick. I wasn't born sick. I took rubella shots. I got sick in the gut. It created symptoms like chronic asthma, sinusitis issues, fatigue, medications I was on. I was on heart medicines as well as asthma medicines because they put the heart medicines in the asthma medicine, which keeps you up and nervous and jittery at times, and you have a lack and an inability to focus. So this is why I don't have friends, because I don't have time for distractions, and it's hard for me to stay focused if I'm overstimulated. So I stay to myself. I grew up in a hospital. And so, at this point, I'm talking to her, and I just sat there quietly. And I got up, and I don't know if I hugged her or kissed her or what. I don't know. Me and my mom was close. I love my mom. We were close. But I just knew. I said, this is what she's telling me. I said, but she doesn't know. I said, she doesn't know. It's a possibility I could have another growth spurt. And so for weeks, I continued to feel those pains. And at this point, I was openly accepting the pain. I didn't care. I was so happy whenever I got the pain, the growing pains in my legs. I would be so happy. And for maybe 8 months, I went through growing pains, but I did not grow. And people don't understand how important that is to men. 5'8" for some of us is not enough. It is just not enough. My whole outlook was 6'7". 6'7", and I promised my brother, I was like, I'm gonna get to 6'7", and I know I'm gonna beat you up. I should tell him that all the time. He's my older brother. I was like, I'm gonna get to 6'7", and I'm going to beat you up. That's just what it is, buddy. You got it coming. You've earned it. He earned it well, but 6'7" never happened. And God and the universe that God created to help us to fortify and move ourselves forward, it did not have it in the cards for me. And so I had to deal with that. I had to learn how to maneuver and get through life as a smaller stature male and not be intimidated by life in general. Generally, a lot of people will see you and they have a idea system about you in their head. based on what they see. Not knowing who you are, it's called judgment. It's called prejudging. Everyone is prejudiced on this planet. I'm not talking about racists. Racists are based on huge systems of keeping people out and disenfranchising people from money, from wealth, from normal educations, jobs, information. That's different. We're not talking about racism. We're talking about the wealth of prejudice that exists in the world, and we are all prejudiced. Everyone is. No one gets out of this world unscathed by prejudice. We will all feel the brunt of it. The one thing that you can do is you can let go as much as you can. Let go of the ideology of looking at other people and thinking that you have them figured out. If you don't have a keen spiritual discernment and an ability that has been proven throughout the years of you knowing how it works and how God allows you to use that discernment gift. If you don't have that gift, you can't just go around judging people you don't know, especially by facial features, movements, and expressions. Those are the worst. Because I could meet you and I could be thinking about how wonderful you are and how great of a person you are. And I've never met anyone like you, and how this is just an amazing individual. And you could be reading my face completely wrong. And that might determine if I get the job or not, or if I get the promotion or not, or if I can have a decent friendship with a person, or if I'm going to have peace in my neighborhood without being judged or ostracized or looked down upon or looked at as a potential problem. People will see you and read you wrong. It's called prejudice. We are prejudging people based on what we think we know. And like I said earlier, and I'm going to say it again, if you don't have ability, if you don't have keen discernment, which is a gift from Christ himself, and the only reason I know about it is because I've lived by myself long enough, meaning throughout my life, I have shaved the friends, the distractions, the people, the relationships, all of those things, just to be able to get to this place. And I'm not perfect, but I've been given a gift and I earned it. You can't take it away. Don't be mad at me if you can get yours. Go to the source. Do what I did. Forgive everybody. Go to Christ. Ask him to put the searchlight in your spirit. Look within. Meditate. Look at that search light and watch it shine throughout your soul and show you all of the ugly things that you need to get rid of and let go of, and start working on yourself every day and cleaning yourself up from that point, and asking for help and asking for God to work through you and clean you up so that you can see people better and you can see people through his eyes rather than through your own eyes. I promise you, you will see the world different. I began to see the face of God beneath the face of every human being. This was in the year 2000. I woke up. I had started waking up in 1996. I started waking up. I really started waking up in 1997. It got powerfully strong. I remember having dreams and synchronicities, and I met this young man, and he was like Jesus Christ. He used to walk around with dreads, and he's this kid who I used to always see on the other side of town, and he was different, and his mother raised him by herself. She was a single parent. His mom was white, his dad was black, but he was different. And I used to tell my ex-wife, something about him is different, and she said, yeah, I know, right? She said, I went to school with him. I said, really? How is he? She was like, mysterious. I said, yeah, that's what I mean. Like spiritual, right? She was like, yeah. I was like, is he kind of weird? And she was like, no, he's cool, actually. And I used to always see him walking around, and I used to ask myself, why don't you just talk to him? And one day, my wife was out of town. She was visiting her family members 2,000 miles away. And I was walking to go pay a bill. And I saw him. And I just decided to talk and just say hi and tell him, like, hey, man, it's funny. I see you all the time. You know, I've seen you in my old neighborhood. And now I'm in a new neighborhood and you're here. And I just, was just wanting to say hi. Like, I've been seeing you since I was a teenager. And here we are, we're young men at this point. Well, at least I know I was. I would think he was about my age, right? And we started talking, and I told him about this dream I had and this music that I was hearing in my dream. And he told me, he said, that's because you're waking up. I had never heard that term before. 1997. I had never heard the term woke or waking up until 1997. So the next time I saw him, I knew he was special. The next time I saw him, I was divorced. I was in a new relationship and I was grocery shopping with the person that I was with. And I saw him walking around going to this new place that they had created from these owners in this place called Seattle, Washington. Created a coffee shop called Starbucks. It was like brand new at that time. And he was walking to Starbucks and he had 12 guys following him. And he was pointing and moving and he was showing them things and everybody was just watching intensely. It was intense. And I said, I knew it. I said, he reminds me of Jesus Christ. And he had like 12 guys, like an entourage following him. And I said, that's that same guy. And he was just like this mysterious, amazing person. And I just knew it was something about him. But he told me that day, he said, that's because you're waking up. And the next time I saw him years later, he was out and he had an entourage at this point. And he was out and he grew his dreads. I mean, he was on point. He was on point. You know, when someone really loves themselves and they take care of themselves and you can look at them and you can see this is how we are supposed to be about ourselves. We're supposed to be embracing ourselves. We're supposed to be able to look in the mirror and love what we see, meaning that even if we're a work in progress, it is okay. You're going to get back to where you need to be or in shape or healthier or reverse your aging and become younger. Whatever it is that you can do, I have done it before. To better yourself, you can do it. You can age yourself backwards. I've done it before. I can show you videos and footage of it to let you see it. You can do it. But I saw him and I said, he reminds me of Jesus Christ. I can't stop talking about this guy. And eventually that relationship with that person, I would have to leave them. And I felt like that was the love of my life. And I was heartbroken for years. And I just stayed by myself for years. And I realized, and I looked up one day and I said, it's funny. I've been celibate for almost 12 years now consecutively. And it is a strange thing because when I count collectively, the non-consecutive years of me just being alone and not dating and involving myself with another human being, I look up and I find out this is like over 20 some odd years. Like I've been by myself. It's crazy. It's crazy. It is absolutely crazy. But I've been able to be a person who consulted millionaires and taught them how to be billionaires. And they trusted me. I don't know why. I made a guy $26 million in 8 months and he trusted me. I can't believe it. And at the end of the year, he gave me a $1,700 bonus check and a pat on the back. And I was mad years later about that because I was like, why you just didn't cut me in? I just got you a federal contract and I just earned you $28 million. No, I'm sorry, $26 million in 8 months. Almost did it single-handedly because my friend Carl that was working was so disgruntled. He didn't want to be there, and we got taken over by another company, and it was like what they call it when you force one company out, a new company comes in, they take it over by force, so to speak, and they change everything up. And yeah, we was the only two guys showing up for work, and we had to make it happen. And I said, me being the first black guy they hired in 7 years, I will be the first to be fired. So let me get out here and get some bread and butter going. So I broke every rule in the living book to make money because I had to go home to my two daughters, and I was a single dad. And I told myself, there's no kind of a way that these kids are going to understand that I don't have a job and I'm fired. There's no wife to fall back on who has a job, who can bring in until I can get back up on my feet. How am I going to explain that to my daughters? So I broke every rule in the book in sales, and I went out there and I worked for this company. And before I knew it, I was, what they say, grinding. Yeah, I was grinding so much. I was selling so much that I looked up and we had sold $26 million worth of product in 8 months. And I'm looking over at Carl like, I used to call Carl Paul. No. Yeah, Paul, like Paul from the Bible. I used to always accidentally call him Paul. He reminded me of Paul from the Bible. More like Peter, though, because he was always disgruntled. Cool guy. I love Paul, man. I love that guy. His name is Carl, but I used to always call him Paul. I love Paul. Paul was like my best job friend. You know, you have friends at work. They're just like your job friends, but you don't really hang out in real life, but you hang out real tough on the job. I love Paul, man. He's a good dude. He was older and he didn't have any kids, and he had been in love with the same woman for all these years. And I was like, you guys are going to get married and don't worry about it. And she was trying to get her daughter raised and off to college, and he was just really upset about things that was going on, and they broke up. And I was like, don't worry, Paul, you're going to get back with her. I said, just let her get her daughter raised and get her daughter off to college and living life, and she'll be out of the picture and she'll stop destroying your relationship. And all of that happened, and Paul eventually married his wife, and we rejoiced. I love Paul, man. He's a good dude. But all this time I was alone. And Christ talks about the people that were worshiping on the mountaintop, and they had all white robes on, and someone said, who are those people over there? And he said, those are the ones that decided to let go of their mortality attributes and characteristics of having a wife or a person that they're in a relationship with. They let go of all of those things. They let it go in order to worship and serve me and follow me. And I'm going to tell you guys, no matter what type of music job I was doing, or what type of a military job, or job within mental health, or whatever type of whatever type of a high security type of a situation that I was working in, let me tell you something. I was always following Christ. No matter what artist I was working for or producing for, I was always following Christ. Always running after Christ. And I remember that young man, and I saw him that day, and I said, I could imagine how people flocked after Christ. Because when those young men were out there going to Starbucks, and they were glued to this guy. I mean, at this point, he had a full entourage. And I said, see, there it is. So those of us who have been able to taste and see that the Lord is good, meaning Christ. We have that intimate relationship, the synchronicities, the things showing up, the knowledge, the information, the walking, the putting your hand in his hand and walking throughout this life. Some of you might not be like Aquila and Aquila. They were a couple. They were together. Some of you might be more like a Paul. You might go it alone. There's people who were not married in those Bible days, but they were partnered into relationships and they worked as couples. And let me explain something to you. When you have a husband, you have to consider everything for your husband. When you have a wife, you have to consider everything for your wife. And let me get to the end right here. And this is what the Spirit has been saying to me. You want to be married so bad. Now let me rewind. Prior to that, it was like, hey, this whole marriage thing for you is like prison. It's like prison. I'm not telling you to not get married. I'm not telling you to get married. You have a gift, and it is called the ability to choose. You can choose. It's a permissible will. It may not be my will for you, but it is a permissible will. But hadn't you seen enough? Have you not gone through enough? Have you not been through enough? Have you not seen what people are capable of doing in relationships? Have you not seen enough? When there's so much work to be done, there's so much work to be done. You got work up to your ears. You are matched to your ears in work. And everything is for the Father. Ultimately, it's for the kingdom. It's for the kingdom of the Most High. It's for the kingdom of Christ. It's for the Christ consciousness being ushered back into the lands fortifiably through people. Look at the movements that's going on around the world. Don't look in just America. Look at the movements. The world is moving, and it's moving back to God. It's moving back to Christ. The consciousness of Christ is re-entering in the realm that we live in. It is taking over in massive droves. Whether you see it or not, regardless to if you see it or not, you will see it. He says in that last book, there is a multitude of people I seen with white robes, many that could not be counted or measured. And they were all different people from different races, classifications, and tribes. They're worshiping. And I'm paraphrasing at this point. Worshiping Christ, worshiping the Most High together in synchronicity. Blessing his holy name. Hosanna, Hosanna, Lord God Almighty. Blessing his holy name. And there was a number that could not be counted. Those who overcame and were saved. I just want you to think about that. Everybody doesn't have the same road. Everybody's not going to get there together, but by golly, George, you're going to get there. Martin Luther King said, I might not get there with you. He said, but I've been to the mountaintop. He already saw it. He said his eyes already saw the glory of the coming of the Most High, Yahuwah, Christ, Yeshua, Yahushua HaMashiach. We call him Jesus. Let me tell you something. After 15 years of being in and out of the hospital and sick all the time and fighting for my life, that's how I done it. That's how I survived. Christ. That's how I've been able to exist and have the keen ability that I was able to develop throughout the years. Christ is the key. Everything that I do, every success that I've had or managed in time is because of Christ. I go in places and I work and miracles happen. Things happen. It's because of Christ. I wear that energy like a suit. I don't know if another human being could even look in my face and deal with that all the time. Maybe for you, marriage is like a prison. My cousin passed away and I was so sad in 2005. And I was walking to work and there was a federal prison across the street from my job. And as I was walking to my job, I looked over at the federal prison and I saw all those little tiny windows and that huge modernized building that just went up. Nothing was special about it. It was just modern and just thousands of windows, it seemed like, everywhere. And something told me he's out of prison. So all that time he was laying in bed and in the hospital and he was in his body and he couldn't fight anymore. He couldn't fight. He couldn't talk. He couldn't eat. He couldn't get out of bed. He couldn't care for himself. He couldn't wipe himself. It had to be done for him. When he finally was able to get out of his body, he was let out of his prison and he moved on. And he would literally come back to my aunt's house to visit. And I remember driving 800 miles to go to honor my aunt, both of my aunts, my great aunt and my younger aunt. And I was at her house and the portable doorbell rang. You know, those little portable doorbells people would put the batteries in and, you know, you'd set it up somewhere on the fireplace mantle or what all. And the doorbell rang and I said, "Who is that?" And she said, "Oh, that's Marvin." And I said, "Excuse me?" And she said, "Go look at it." So I went and I looked at the doorbell and I turned it around. And it had no battery in it. He would let her know when he was coming to visit and check on her. And then he would leave. And I remember being there fixing her toilet and I was so tired because I was trying to get her a birthday gift. I wanted to get her a cake and do some things and fix the toilet, but then I had to go take the toilet apart and then get the parts and go to the hardware store and then, you know, exchange the toilet, get a brand new toilet and get all of the parts and the caulking or whatever it was that I needed and bring all of that stuff back and then, you know, redo the toilet and put the toilet on. I wanted to do all of this before she got home from work. And she was a school teacher working at a military base. And so I wanted to have all of this together. And so I had to drive around town looking for all of the parts and the people was not helping me properly. And there was this one old man in the store and boy, when I say I looked at him, I was like, he's going to tell me to get out of the store. But this is why I say we don't prejudge. I said, I'm quite sure he doesn't like anybody black. But I went on ahead and I went and talked to him because I said, this is my last chance. And I've been to every place here in this town to find the particular part so that this toilet will work. And it will not leak. It will stop leaking because, you know, I have all the brand new parts. I had the brand new toilet and I explained to him what I was doing and he was nice to me. He was kind and he helped me. He said, "Oh, that's not going to work like that." He said, "You need this and this and that in order to make that work." I said, "So you mean to tell me I went to this place and to that place and they just let me buy the stuff and they did?" He said, "Yeah, that's not going to work." He said, "You need this." And I said, thank you so much. I was so grateful that he gave me that information. And I had prejudged that man. I didn't know him from a can of paint, from an ounce of business. I didn't know anything about his life, but I knew that when he saw me, he was probably going to want to string me up by a tree. And that's wrong that we do people that way. And so this is why I say I've worked years on being by myself and getting as close as I possibly can to put my hand in the hand of the man that stilled the waters, so that I could have a better degree of observation and a keen sensibility, so that I can sense people and I don't treat them bad anymore. I don't judge them. I look at them through the eyes of God when I see them. I look into the heart. I don't look at the face. I don't look at the clothes. I don't look at what they have monetarily. I don't care about their material possessions. Those things are nothing. The earth that we live in, the Bible says the earth is the Lord's, meaning it belongs to God, and the fullness thereof, meaning everything in this world belongs to God. It all came from the ground. Your granite top counter, your metal in your car, your wood, your bed, everything comes from the ground. And when it's over, it goes back to the ground. Listen, one last message, and I'm going to keep it moving. It was that man in that hardware store who literally saved my life. I go back and I put that toilet together, and I finally got it to work. All praise, glory be to God, right? Glory be to God. So I go and sit down in my aunt's living room, and I guess I'm sitting in her husband's chair, who had passed on, and her son had passed on. And so there was no more men in that house. And I'm sitting in his chair, and I passed out at this point. I just didn't even know I was asleep. And I audibly heard my cousin's voice tell me, hey, I'm going to need you to wake up, because you got only so much time before she comes home. So you got to go get the cake. You need to go to the 99-cent store, get the balloons and get the strings. And then you need to get the cards and everything. He said, you only got so much time. He said, so I'm going to need you to get up now and hurry up and get. He said, you don't have that much time left. And I looked and I was like, what? And I was like, in between sleep, and I woke up and I had pins and needles going through my entire body. It was like my body felt like a porcupine sprouting needles. And I remember like this vibration, this shaking feeling that I had. And I said, wait a sec. I said, he really do be here. And he told me, you only have so much time. I need you to get up now. He really wanted me to go to the store and get his mother that cake and get those. Like, I got to hold myself together telling this story. He really wanted me to get her that cake and those balloons and that card and whatever else little gifts that me and my oldest daughter had put into a gift basket and threw in. He really wanted it for her. He really wanted it for her. And we got up and we got out of there. I hightailed it out there and went to the stores and did everything I was supposed to do. And then we came back because she gave us some keys to let ourselves back in. And we put the whole thing together. So by the time she came home, she had her birthday cake and all her stuff there. And we barely made it back before she did. We barely had enough time to get everything together. He was 100% absolutely right on that side. There is no space or time, meaning that there is no illusion of time. There just is. And he knew exactly how much in this realm of time I had. And so therefore it is what it is. She had took me to the military casino, and I was in the casino and I heard him tell me, play this one. I said, okay, because my aunt liked the slot machines. He says, play this one. The first night we went out there, she took us to the casino. We drove like 2 hours to get to it. So I went and I put the money in. And I told my daughter, I said, hold this one. She had just turned 18. She was going on 19, actually. And I went and got my aunt. And I said, hey, I want you to come over here and do me a favor. And she said, what is it? I said, get all your stuff, grab your stuff. And I said, I want you to come sit down right here. I said, I want you to come sit down right here. And I just want you to hit this button on this slot machine. And she hit the button. And I said, when she hit that $250. And it came out. I said, you want to play some more? She said, no, I'm taking this. I said, good for you. I said, good for you. But I didn't tell her that I picked up on his energy. He wanted his mom to have a wonderful birthday weekend. Isn't that interesting how people will cross over and still somehow be with us? Isn't that amazing? Sometimes some of you are not meant to be married. I'm not saying that it's, I'm saying I need to still mature. This is where I'm coming back to me. I need to still mature because I don't want to forego my relationship and my closeness with God and my abilities and my gifts that I have. I don't want to be distracted. But I do miss being in love with a woman. I do miss it. But I love Christ even more. So I'm going to leave it with that. And I'm going to let you guys know that if you want to hear more content like this, you can come and check out this voice. As you know, I don't post pictures, and there is a reason why. If you'd like to know, talk to me in the comment section and I'll make a video about it. But first I have to pray and ask if I can get permission because I was told not to talk about it. But we'll see. We'll see. We'll see if I'm allowed to. I would love to. I like to push him a little bit. That's my best friend, right? I like to push him a little bit. I like to push him, But I'm not supposed to talk about it, but maybe he'll let me talk. So if you guys get in the comment and you talk, maybe he'll let me tell why. But we'll see. Because it's a lot going on in the world. So like and subscribe. Be blessed. Peace.